Peace be upon you, folks. Today, I would like to talk a little bit on the mark of the beast and address the Daniel's statue based on the dream from Nebuchadnezzar, where the feet was made of iron mixed with clay. I'll be going down a rabbit hole. I hate to use that term sometimes because it's like it's been given to us. But so I would address warp speed, Donald Trump's warp speed, and some of the technology that and patents that have been pushed recently, which I believe is taking us down a road that we're not necessarily expecting, or a road that's good for us. So I would like to first talk about the matrix and the false matrix. When people hear something like the matrix, they have a certain idea of what it means, right? And that's part of the magic, right? Controlling the general conscious mind so that certain words trigger a certain response, or they give us a certain image, a certain feeling. So when I talk about the matrix, right, I talk about the main matrix of the Lord, right? When matrix in general, matrix in general refers to how reality is set up, right? The codes, the laws that govern a certain reality. So if you're talking about a computer, its matrix would be like its CPU, right? The codes that govern what makes it a computer, how it responds to input, the different programs that run on it, and how those programs can be used. That's what makes up a particular computer. That's the matrix. So similarly, in Islam, we're taught that there's the throne of God, which is like the main CPU. You could think of it that way. And commands basically descend down the throne, right? They descend from one heaven to the other, right? And in Islam, they teach you that there are 7 heavens. So basically, and then also the Quran tells you that the Lord inspired each heaven with its command. So the commands that come from the throne, right? Each heaven interprets those commands based on its reality, how its reality is set up, right? So that's the matrix of the Lord. And within that matrix, you learn that some of the prophets and the messengers, they were enlightened, they were awakened by the Lord, so that they have the authority. They tell you that there is the mother book that's with God, right? And from that mother book, that's where the scriptures are got from. So some of these prophets, they were awakened with reality. They were one with reality. They could understand maybe the birds, they could understand the ants, and they had access, authority. They were given the keys to certain realities, right? So that's the matrix, the main matrix, because everything is a matrix. A matrix is not necessarily bad, right? Now, what Satan does is it's like the Bible says, Satan wants to exalt himself like the Most High, right? So Satan takes something of the Lord and he abuses it. He misappropriates it, right? So he uses it where it shouldn't be used. I would refer to that as fornication of the spirit, right? The spirit being the idea, right? The law. That spirit has a context that it should be used in. So if it's not used in that context, then it's used in a foreign body, basically. It's like having a demon entity possess the human body. You fornicated that body, right? You've destroyed the sanctity of that body. So everything has a spirit, basically, has how it should be used, its purpose, right? And when that thing is not used in that manner, then you can say it has been used in a foreign body. It has been used in a context that it should not be used at. And that's fornication of that spirit. It's a defiling of that spirit, right? So basically, the false matrix is set up by Satan and his disciples. That's how I see it. And this post, basically, I'm giving you how I try to interpret some of the events. I'm not saying I have some divine inspiration or some kind of supernatural knowledge or anything like that. I'm giving you my opinion based on what I see, what I think I've been awakened to. And maybe that can trigger you to have further insights. Maybe you can agree with me or not agree with me. Maybe it would stimulate something in you. But the false matrix then is the set up by Satan, how his reality, what he has set up, so that we can interpret reality based on his false matrix, right? So the false matrix and magic are related, right? Magic is the way they control the conscious mind, right? So they program the conscious mind with certain movies, certain words, so that we think a certain way, so that we can see the matrix, their false matrix, in a way they want us to see it. So basically, everything that God has set up, it's like if you say, is there good and evil, right? I think knowledge has levels of understanding. So there is something you might think you might know at a certain level and it's true, but then at a higher level it's not necessarily true. It's not wrong, but it's not necessarily true. That's how I see knowledge sometimes. And that's why I think sometimes it's like God is testing us, right? Are we going to be arrogant about what we've learned, right? Or are we going to practice what the Buddhist or the Taoist might call not knowing, right? Because even in the Quran it says above every knowledgeable person there is one more knowing, right? The Lord is always more knowing. So it's like, let's say for example, right, if you're asked, is there good and evil? At a certain level of understanding, a certain level of knowledge, you can say yes, there's good and evil. But then, I'm giving an example, right? It doesn't have to be true. That's just how I see it. But then, at a higher level, you can say not necessarily. There's no good, there's no evil, right? Now, this is how I see it. When the Lord was going to create Adam, told the angels, all right, this is the next task. The angels, maybe looking at the blueprint of Adam, were perplexed. They were puzzled. Why are we creating another being that has free will, right? Because the jinns had existed. The jinns are what the Christians call the fallen angels. But basically the angels were confused. They were disturbed by the news, by the command. Why are we going to create an entity that's going to cause bloodshed, that's going to cause disobedience and ingratitude upon the earth? And even if they didn't voice that out, right, or even if they thought they were talking in secret, the Lord knew everything they were thinking, right? So the Quran tells us that the Lord taught Adam the names of all things. Then he brought the angels and asked them, say, well, if you know, then tell me the names of these things. So it's almost like the Lord, the solution for the bloodshed and all the evil is knowledge. So basically evil could be thought of as ignorance, right? Anything that goes outside of knowledge is ignorance, right? And the one that is knowing is one that is in submission to his Lord, right? It's like the Bible says, I think it's in Psalms or the Wisdom of Solomon, where it says, reverence of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, right? So basically, I think everything the Lord created is good, but everything has its place, right? There's a balance. If you take something, you put it in its wrong place, then you've taken a spirit and put it in a foreign body, right? So they tell you learn that even the universe, right? Everything is efficient, 100% efficiency. There's no waste, right? So that's how the Lord works. But you look at the human being and how he has disturbed nature. There's pollution, there's waste, there is harm towards another person mentally, emotionally. We are always creating an imbalance. This is because of a lack of knowledge. This is because of ignorance, right? Whenever we let anger get the best of us, whenever we let some lower emotion get the best of us, it's almost like we're acting out of ignorance, right? So everything the Lord created, it's like, even if it's a greed, if you ask somebody about greed, they might tell you, yeah, greed is bad. But if you say, yes, I'm greedy for knowledge, I'm greedy in how I strive for the Lord, like I bring as many people as possible, right? Then greed in that sense is not bad. So every spirit is good, but you have to use it in its right context. That's the balance. That's the name of all things, I believe. That's the what you would call the fitra of Allah, right? The nature in which the Lord has created everything, the fitra. So that's the balance. Everything has its nature. If you take that thing and put it in a foreign body, then you've defiled that spirit, right? You fornicated that spirit. So basically, Adam was taught the names of all things. And similarly, we are going to be taught the names of all things, right? We're gaining knowledge, but we're not necessarily using it the right way, right? So it's not like some of the inventions are bad, but it's like they're in the hands of the wrong people. Sometimes we read history and some of the scriptures, and we hear about the former peoples who worshipped the jinns, right? They worship these deities and they sacrifice to them. And we think that is so far off. We think that the leaders nowadays are different. And in fact, it might be that some of these leaders are not even human entities, but we don't know. But we're trapped in a delusion, which is the false matrix. So basically, Adam was taught the names of all things, and we are also going to be taught the names of all things, right? But I believe the Messiah, the son of Adam, who is like the heir, the inheritor of Adam, is going to be taught the names of all things as well. And then maybe giving something extra, maybe something over life and death, right? Because I believe the forbidden tree was the tree of death, right? But that's another topic. So basically, I was watching Florida Maki. I watch a lot of YouTube channels. I don't necessarily agree with everything they say, right? I don't believe like they have some kind of supernatural knowledge, but I believe sometimes they, even if they might say 100 things I don't agree with, they might say one thing that I might be like, oh, I resonate with this, right? This is some idea I've been playing with as well, or I've read something like this, right? So just because I don't agree with somebody doesn't mean I wouldn't listen to them, right? But some of these guys, like, I have my suspicions about them, right? It's like, no, whether they're doing it knowingly or unknowingly, I believe some of them are serving the agenda of the false matrix. Because this idea of the red pill, blue pill, right? Satan also wants to create an awakening within his matrix, just like the Lord creates an awakening, right? And sometimes these guys are awakened within the false matrix, but they think they are awakened for real. And that's not the case. Satan is just creating something similar to what God does. So just because you're woke or you're awakened, you see the realities of the governments and all that, doesn't mean you're truly awakened, right? Because we're going to talk about artificial intelligence as well, right? They have to teach the artificial intelligence for different scenarios. So this is one scenario they're playing out, right? But it doesn't mean you're awakened. True awakening can only come from the Lord. You might want to see the world like, oh, we're being deceived. That's one level. But to be truly awakened, you have to be awakened by the Lord, right? So I was watching Florida McKee's channel, and he was talking about wormwood and how Trump signaled wormwood, right? So I believe sometimes they deal with rituals in the false matrix. It's like when God sends commands down the throne through the heavens. I believe they play with rituals, so as above, so below. And through these rituals, I believe they want to affect reality, because through these rituals, whether it's movies and all that, and the news, through them, they can get us to think a certain way. And if you believe a certain thing, it's easily to be influenced based on that thing. So it's like they program our subconscious mind, right? And even our conscious minds. So that's part of their magic. That's part of their sorcery in getting us to see the false matrix as they want us to see it, right? So basically, Florida Maki was talking about the Moroccan guy, Monsif, who is heading the the Operation Warp Speed, right? And it talked about the Moroccan flag, right? And the green star, which might signal wormwood. And so basically, I looked at it now. I was like, oh, okay, let me look into this guy as well. So we'll be going down a little bit of a rabbit hole in that sense, right? But but basically, I'm going to play one video first, right? Watch this, and then we can take it from there.
I'm sick. I have a virus that's drawing sustenance and power from my body. It makes me think, can I do that? Can I draw power and energy from another human being the way a rogue and parasite do? That's just in comic books and movies. Or is it? I'm Rusty Ward and I want superpowers. And I'm going to get them using science and technology. In the movie The Matrix, artificially intelligent creatures use human beings as living batteries to fuel their civilization. It turns out it's not just machines from the future trying to milk people for power. Scientists and engineers are doing it right now. The field is called human energy harvesting, where people are used as energy sources to generate power. On average, we consume 3,300 watt-hours of energy every day. We use this when we're sleeping, when vigorously exercising, and we lose a considerable amount of it in the form of body heat. This is a lot of energy, and scientists have been coming up with different ways in order to harness it. One form is piezoelectricity, the electric charge that accumulates in certain solid materials like crystals and ceramics when mechanical force is applied to it. The most common example of this are the quartz crystals found in a cigarette lighter. When the hammer of the lighter comes down on the crystals, a spark is created. A number of nightclubs are using piezoelectric devices in their flooring. Dancers' movements create electricity, which partially powers their lighting. Scientists are currently working on a piezoelectric film that can go over the top of a keyboard. Then, the act of typing would generate electricity that could power other devices. A Swedish company has found another way to use the power that humans generate. They're able to take the excess body heat from the 250,000 daily commuters at the Stockholm Central Station and use it to heat a nearby office complex. The system uses heat exchangers in the station's ventilation system to convert the body heat into hot water. Then, that hot water is pumped to the building across the street. One of the most remarkable devices is Max Donnellan's bionic energy harvester. It's a knee brace with an electromagnetic generator. 1 minute of walking will produce enough current to charge a half-hour cell phone conversation. A similar generator made by Larry Roman at the University of Pennsylvania takes advantage of the up and down motion a backpack makes as you move with it. A series of springs enables the pack to generate 20 watts. That amount of electricity could power a number of portable devices. The downside of this pack is that it has to be carrying 80 pounds in order to generate those 20 watts. This makes it impractical for consumers, but just right for some soldiers. That's why the U.S. Marine Corps is funding the development of these packs.
So, I'm not against artificial intelligence or against technology. It's just, I believe technology should be used to serve us, not the other way around, right? But the way I see it, it's like, think about it, right? Even in the introduction of the previous video, it talks about in the Matrix movie, the community of artificial intelligence was harvesting energy from human beings. Why does artificial intelligence need a community? Like, and why do they need our energy? Do they need us to supply them energy so that they could achieve their goals? I mean, are they trying to hang out? Are they trying to pursue higher realities, right? So why would technology that is not self-aware, that is not conscious, why would it need a community, basically, right? Now, this is because I think, right, if you look at the reality, so another YouTube channel guy I watch is Jonathan Clegg, right? I had seen him before one time, but at that time, I mean, I guess it didn't resonate with me at the time. But then I started watching him again recently, right? And I resonate with some of the things he says. He says something like, we have like a cord that's connected to the heaven and also down to the pit, right? Which resonates with me, right? Because one time I had a dream and there was like a leech on my back, and I had the sense that it was using some of my energy. And I have been playing also with the idea that there might be these clones, right, that are living in the hollow earth, which you might call the pit. And it's like, okay, it's like in Islam they say the devil, Satan, touches every child at birth, but he didn't touch the Messiah and the mother of the Messiah, Mary, right? But basically, every child is touched at birth. So I believe sometimes, like, we have these entities that are feeding off of our energy. It's like, why do we only use 10% of our brains, right? Well, maybe the Lord has allowed it because most of us wouldn't use it for good, right? And he would only give that to a certain people when they are actually awakened. But basically, it's like, so I believe, yes, there might be a way that maybe they clone us in a certain way so that these entities, because of the similarities in our DNA, which you could consider as a frequency, an antenna, a radio transmitter, right? They can access our subconscious, right? Suppress our mind so that we don't access that subconscious, and they can use that mind power in a way that we cannot use it, so that they can have all these advancements, they can have all these knowledge about certain things in the spiritual realm that we should be having, right? So there are different ways and different reasons they might be tapping into our minds. I mean, it's like we only use 10%. Why is that, right? So they're suppressing our minds. So, and also, if you look at, like I say, right, it's like the way I look at reality is like you have a, let's say, a 3D crystal image, a 3D crystal that breaks into really small pieces. And Satan takes some of these small pieces and puts them in two-dimensional images. So now you're looking at a false matrix of something that resembles the truth, but one, it's not even it's not even from a 2D two-dimensional image, but it's been placed in a two-dimensional image. So basically, you're not seeing the whole picture, right? But so it's like there are levels of deception, and I think that's how Satan does it, right? But basically, I think there's truth out there, right? It's scattered around. And even when you look at the false matrix, God maybe has allowed it because he can show certain people and be like, yeah, that's truth, no, that's not true. Because it's like, even when the truth is established, right? If you look at movement and rest, it's like the Gospel of Thomas, Jesus was asked, what's the proof of your Lord? And he says movement and rest, right? So if you look at truth has to establish itself. And how do you establish it yourself? It's like, if I'm a king, right, if I want to prove my sovereignty, there should be no doubt about my sovereignty, which means everybody has to submit to me. There can't be another person opposing me, right? So for truth to establish itself, that yes, this is truth indeed, the ways of falsehood have to be known. They have to be there so that truth can be like, this is why this is false, this is why this is false, and this is why I'm the truth, right? So similarly, there can be falsehood around, but you can find truth within it. You can establish the truth within it. It's like the Quran says, right? We dash the truth upon falsehood, and thereupon it destroys it. In another part, it says, we dash the truth upon falsehood, and thereupon falsehood disappears, because falsehood by its nature is bound to depart. So even when you look at the sign of the Pisces of the zodiac, right, it's two fish. They're swimming in opposite directions, and they have a cord that's connecting them, right? And they tell you that that's also related to the mother-child worship, so Semiramis and Tammuz, or Cupid and I think Athena, right? So it's almost like they might go one way or the other, or the cord might be caught between them, right? That influence between the mother-child is belief that people have or whatever. So this idea that there are entities feeding off of our energy, I don't think is far-fetched, right? I think it's based on reality. We might not know the true reality of it, how it works, and we can speculate on it, right? But I think it's based on some truth. So I'm not against technology, right? But it's almost like maybe there's coming a time when that Another guy I watch is called Katai, Mr. Katai. I don't agree with everything he says, but some of the things I resonate with, like especially talking about an ancient AI, because I believe Adam was taught the names of all things. I believe Adam had the technology, the best technology, right? And maybe in a deal with Satan, we lost that. And maybe they can use that now to suppress our minds and influence us, right? So I believe that maybe that artificial intelligence, maybe they lost it at some point, or and also the pit, because these genes, right, these Nephilim, I don't know their true nature, whether they have bodies, what they're made of, and all that, or what they, if they need human beings, they need a body. But it's almost like maybe there's coming a time, maybe the war in the heavens, and then also in the pit, right? So they might need to come to the surface. And I think it's like now they come in as machines, right? So, machines are what looks, it's like what is the next step in evolution, right? Machines look powerful, and these things always want to look powerful. So they might want to abide in these machines and be worshipped once more as gods, right? Because when you think about it, when they talk about some of these artificial intelligence, even in the Terminator movies, it's like they can do some supernatural things. They can send people beyond space-time, right? They can influence, they can change realities, even if you look at some of the TV shows nowadays. So it's like, are we talking about technology, or are we talking about entities that are presenting themselves in these technologies, right? Which is what I think is actually happening. So now, if you look at warp speed, right, which is part of the Magick as well, we've all, when I think about warp speed, I think about Star Trek and Star Wars, and I think about moving at fast speeds, right? It's like folding time and space, so that to travel a far distance, you take just a matter of seconds, right? So it's about moving dimensions, it's about moving realities, right? Maybe jumping the state of evolution from where we are now to where they want to take us to, right, in a matter of seconds, right? So that's what I think about when I think about warp speed, right? But basically, they've created this matrix wherein we all have this idea of what warp speed is. So now let's go down some of this, what I would say is a rabbit hole on warp speed and Monsif Slaoui.